Hi, everybody. This is a part of the Centering SDGs discussion that we've been having for the past couple of days. And here we are with Maryam Rabiee and Ashley Jun, and they have come together to do an interview on a very important topic on actually SDGs, but creating story maps, using data and localizing the SDGs, because usually people think that SDGs are global goals and they don't know how to relate to it because they don't see it in their surroundings and in their education system. So I will ask Ashley and Maryam to do their introductions and to take this discussion forward. We only have around 30 minutes or so. So maybe have that discussion and then maybe I can come at the end if I have any questions. But it's mainly for our teachers and students across the globe who will be viewing this discussion to see how story maps and what is a story map and how is this data being utilized and what is the connection between sustainable development goals and your local action that can be depicted through the work that Ashley and Maryam has been doing. So welcome to both of you, and so glad that you are here and taking this forward. Over to you for the discussion.
Thank you so much, Radhika, for organizing this really important event. And it's a pleasure to be having this conversation with Ashley today about data and storytelling and a lot of exciting work that she's been doing with the different tools. Ashley, maybe I'll get started with a quick intro and then hand it over to you, and then we can jump right into the conversation.
Got it.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Maryam Rabiee. I'm a manager at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and my work at the organization focuses on data for the Sustainable Development Goals.
Hi, my name is Ashley Jun, and I'm a current 8th grader at Milburn Middle School located in New Jersey. So I guess we can start. So Maryam, could you start off by explaining more about why data is important for the SDGs?
Sure. The Sustainable Development Goals are a very important and ambitious framework to foster and achieve economic growth, social justice, and environmental sustainability by 2030. And they guide us towards a more sustainable future. To understand the state of sustainable development around the world and to effectively track progress on each of the goals, we need reliable and timely data. Data helps us monitor and understand trends, gaps, and actions needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, the UN has a data strategy, and there are a number of organizations and institutions around the world that are investing in producing data and making it accessible to stakeholders, decision makers, and students. The youth play an important role in implementing the SDGs, which is why SDSN and many other organizations try to bring together all the actors that can make data more accessible to a wider audience, including all backgrounds and expertise. Ashley, I wanted to ask if you have any experience working with data in any of your school projects that you could share with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the brief explanation. And it seems like data is very essential when working with the SDGs and if we want to create a sustainable future moving forward. And I also love that there are more increasing opportunities for the youth. But to answer your question, I do actually have experience using data in my school project in the past. But however, whenever I did have those projects using data, it was very challenging for me to communicate the data that I obtained and sort of organize them in a very clear way for my audience. And I remember that one time actually in my social studies class, we had a colony project and my group had to research about colonial Georgia. And we were supposed to learn about geography, economics, and education, and all different aspects about Georgia during colonial times. But I think my group and even myself especially had trouble writing about Georgia's geography because we could only explain the geography with words, and that made it so much harder for my other peers to visualize how it looked like. So, Maryam, when we do have like a school project that is assigned using data, do you think there's a way that we can present this data in a more efficient or just generally in a better way for people?
Yeah, of course. Sometimes it's helpful to contextualize a number and visualize it in a way that's easy to understand. For example, if we have information on where an incident happened or simply where people are, so meaning if we have geographical information, we can map the data and display it in an interactive map. So you can display the spatial distribution of resources or whatever it is you're trying to visualize. So sometimes we can also add analytics to further contextualize the map and provide information that reflect an understanding of how much progress we're making or identify where the gaps are. So through our work, we've partnered with many organizations that have helped create a space where we can visualize that data. One of our partners is Esri. They're a company that produces geospatial software, and we use that to visualize our data. They also have a tool called ArcGIS Storymaps. So it combines interactive maps with multimedia content, and it helps us contextualize our data and visualize it to different audiences and different interest groups about why the data matters and what kind of impact it's having on various goals. So many of our partners use the tool to communicate their data through storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you because I have experience using the ArcGIS story maps, actually in the Eco Ambassador Summer program last summer. And I thought it was an amazing feature. I was actually able to share the data and share an interactive map at the same time, which I believe assisted a lot of people in understanding the information and staying coherent and lucid with what I am actually talking about. And the visual representation definitely helps, and definitely helps for people to visualize what it actually looks like. Just going back to what I said about Georgia's geography, if I have used the ArcGIS story map feature, I think my peers would have been able to understand the geography so much better. And I would also like to add that I love the fact that story maps and its tools are so much accessible for even the youth and also adults.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Eco Ambassadors program. So maybe I could just provide a little bit of background for those who aren't familiar. We worked with Radhika and her team over the summer to integrate GIS into the summer program so that students can integrate geospatial information and tools in their summer research projects on SDG 14, which is about life underwater. So we provided a series of workshops and training sessions so that students learn how to create a map, utilize and navigate the Storymap tool, and present their final projects through this ArcGIS tool. And in which we saw that it was a great way for them to communicate the outcome of their work, not only to their peers, but to a wider audience.
Yeah, I mean, as a person who, again, used the story maps before, I can tell you that it was such a wonderful experience. So I would actually like to share my story map and sort of walk through it. So let me just share my screen. Okay, I'm hoping that you can see it. So just a brief explanation about what I researched about over the summer, and it was about fast fashion, which is just a term for very inexpensive, substandard, and disposable quality of clothing that is being mass produced in the status quo. And I researched about fast fashion is speeding towards and leading towards ocean pollution. So this is generally the beginning of what a story map can look like. And if I go down, I just gave a brief introduction about my research, and in the story maps feature, actually you can put a header here, so you can just adjust whatever you want to say and how big the text font can be. So I talked about how horrible is the situation that humans are facing right now. I explained fast fashion. I talked about the effect of fast fashion, and I actually talked about who produces microfibers. And the reason that why ocean pollution is getting worse and worse is because when these clothings, and especially fast fashion clothings, are thrown into laundries, they actually shed microfibers, and microfibers are just plastic particles that are not visible to our human's naked eye. So I kind of described about microfibers. I also talked about toxic textile dye because that is also one of the reasons why oceans are being polluted. And going down, now I talked about and shared my research about how our oceans changing. So one thing that I would like to kind of talk about before I move on is that if you look at the top of here, you can see like headers. So if I want to go back to the beginning of my presentation, I can click on it and it's going to direct me to here. And when I want to go back to what I was just at here, I can change it right away. So it's a very easy tool. And so continuing on with what I was saying about how our ocean's changing, I talked about how does fast fashion pollute our ocean. And I talked about microfibers in a more in-depth. And after that, from here, I shared 2 scientific research, or almost like an experiment, that I was able to read about and learn about during my research process. The first one is about scientists going to the Northern Sea and trying to find microplastic particles. So I just gave a general introduction of what was the research about. And after that, this is actually the interactive map that Maryam and I have been talking about. So here, if you look at it, there's going to be in the bottom here, there's going to be 2 slides. So the first one is Beaufort Sea, and the second one is Canadian Arctic Archipelago. And these 2 locations are both of the locations that these scientists went to find the amount of microfibers at the oceans. So for the Beaufort Sea, as you can see in the top right corner, you can basically see the location here. And below that, I can talk about the results. And as I scroll down, I can move on to the Canadian Arctic Archipelago. And I again talked about the results of this experiment and what the scientist was able to find. But also, if you want to see the exact location of the map, you can just click on Edit Location. And if you go back here and like that, you can probably see a better and a zoomed look of where this is exactly located. And if you want to change the location, you just have to click on it, and you can just click on a different location, like here, somewhere here, and then it's going to move. But from the viewpoint, I can also use this tool to magnify it or just to decrease my sight. So moving on from that map, there's also a quote feature with the ArcGIS Storymaps, and I also found this to be really helpful because whenever I researched about this topic, I found a few inspirational quotes that I would like to share with my audience, and I was able to kind of share those quotes using this quote feature. And after that, I explained another experiment that I was able to learn, which was about just fishes being exposed to high concentration of microplastic fibers and how it disrupts their health system. After that, I talked about excessive usage of water and how our oceans are being dried up because there's so much clothes being produced right now. And after that, as you can see, the header changed again. I actually proposed a solution, and I gave a solvency and imposed a question about how can we reduce fast fashion. So I categorized into what can the governments can do, what can companies can do, like Patagonia, and also what can civil society do. So before I move on, I would also like to talk about the image feature in our GIS Storymaps. So here I actually put it in float left, but you can also put it to the right, or you can just center it to the screen. So what I actually found this really helpful because when I'm using another feature that is not ArcGIS Storymaps, I always had trouble putting the pictures in because the system was a bit confusing. But for the Storymaps, it is actually very clear, so you won't have any trouble playing around with images. And after that, at the end, I just talked about what can you do to decrease microfiber pollution. And some solutions that I gave was about you can choose a sustainable brand like Patagonia, Levi's, or you can donate your baby or old clothes so that other people can use a secondhand or rented garment. And I also talked about a very important part about this entire trying to create a sustainable future, which is using your own voice. And I talked about you need to use your voice to let others people know, especially our governments or other companies, that you would like these specific policies to be imposed and established so that we can all decrease microfiber pollution. And at the end, I just put an image there. And I also have a caption saying that slow fashion is the only sustainable future for the industry and the planet. So I thought that was a good way to end my story map presentation. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments about your story map, and I love how you put your research and your work in a storytelling format, and it makes it really easy when you combine it with different visuals and maps. It makes it really easy to kind of follow the narrative, understand the different components, and then also relate to the topic. And I also really like how you ended your story map with a call to action. So it's not just informing your readers or your audience or your peers about the work that you've done, but also encouraging them to join you in taking action towards sustainable fashion. So I really appreciate the work that you put into your story map.
Yeah, thank you, first of all. And second, I agree with you on that. I mean, I just thought that while using story maps, I just found it really interesting because I was able to, interact with data while I was creating that interactive map. So I thought that kind of experience of interacting with data won't be like possible if I didn't use story maps. So I thought that was a huge learning experience for me as well. And so, Maryam, could you now sort of maybe explain about your motivation in story maps? And in other words, why do you keep utilizing story maps for your own work?
That's a great question. I mean, I think data-driven storytelling can spur action for sustainable development. And I think the interactive and multimedia nature of the story map tool can help contextualize a phenomenon or progress and display trends over time. It helps paint a picture of the whole story and all the contributing factors. And it also, as you did with your story map, it encourages others to get involved. So it takes, and as Radhika mentioned earlier, the Sustainable Development Goals that oftentimes seem as this abstract concept into actionable items that we can all relate to and understand and contribute to.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and I can personally relate to that as well because I've gotten introduced to Story Maps through the summer program, and that's how I started to actually use the Story Maps feature. But I mean, at first, when I learned about Story Maps and I got introduced, it just, to me personally, it just basically looked like a very unique and creative tool. But however, as I did get to play around with it and work around with Story Maps even more, I realized that I was interacting with data again, and again with the interacting with the data that I've collected. And what I mean by that is that I was, instead of just copying the data's down and the information is down into a presentation, I was actually creating maps after completely understanding and analyzing those data at some extent.
Great. Ashley, do you think you can further explain how presenting data and information through storytelling has impacted your peers or your community or your friends?
Yeah, sure. That's an amazing question, actually, because I think that generally Story Map has helped everyone around us since it's such a good tool to share environmental awareness, as you mentioned before. And I think the tools that are available in the Story Maps really help people to understand the issue better because understand the issue better. And what I mean by that is especially about the data that are being presented from the presenter, because when people are actually sure about the meaning behind the data, because they're now looking at images, they're now looking at a map that you can interact with, And when they actually understand those datas and if they know the meaning behind them fully, just like the presenter, I think it is obviously easier to spread environmental awareness because, you know, people feel the gravity behind the issue that I'm talking about. So I mean, I think I encourage people to, and I urge people to continue using Storymaps or start using Storymaps because it is a truly wonderful tool. And I believe that it will allow people to clearly convey whatever message they want to, that whatever message they want to say to the society or to their community itself as well.
Thanks so much, Ashley, for sharing your experience with everyone. And it was a pleasure to work with you over the summer and to continue to learn about the work that you're doing now. I want to stop here and ask Radhika if anyone else has any questions related to Ashley's presentation or storytelling and data in general.
Jasmine, Jasmine is joining here from DC. Carol is joining actually from Kenya. Thanks for joining, both of you. Actually, one question from my end is on the technical side for Ashley, how there is one thing of doing the research and, you know, on your content, and the other was learning about how to use the Storymap interface. So there are two parallel learning together that is going on, and we had created a learning path, if you remember, on using Storymap. So how helpful was it? Do you think that the learning map that was there on how do you learn how to make these story maps can be given to other students and they can replicate this process? Or do you think that it was a challenging task to learn it, but once you learned it, you know, you could go, you know, fly with it? So what is your impression on that?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. I mean, at first, like, I think that the first try of you just like trying to figure it out is kind of hard. But when once you get the catch of it, you can definitely just like go like fly with it. Just like what you said, it's definitely easy when you do understand what's going on with the story maps. So I think if the if this tools can be like used in schools or in other districts, I think that if they teach the students well on how to use it, I think it's going to be such an amazing tool because it is hard to learn, but once you know how to do it, it's going to be really easy.
So you're basically saying that you require some facilitation to learn. There needs to be a teacher or a educator or facilitator involved so that you can learn the basics, and then once you do that, then obviously the sky is the limit. That was a good learning experience from listening to you, Ashley, that you could use it in many different ways, do local action, but there needs to be some kind of mediation to make you learn the creating the story maps, if I'm hearing that correctly, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be, there shouldn't be we don't have to have a facilitator or a teacher. I just think that maybe there can just like be a general video that is recorded kind of explaining through the tools, like using the tools, and I think that'll be fine. So
thank you, Ashley. Jasmine, Carol, any question for Maryam?
No, actually I don't. I'm very impressed. I remember seeing a little sneak peek when we had the last event on everything about sustainable fashion, and I was very interested. I am very much impressed with the level of involvement that you all have in your projects, especially at such a young age. It truly gives it a lot of hope for the next generations, and I'm just happy to be here.
I know I am actually a little bit jealous that I am not learning this when I was in standard 8. Now I am like much older. I won't tell you the age, but still I think as the SDGs go, when they say lifelong learning, it is definitely a lifelong learning, and I think we should not stop learning from different avenues, especially since ESRI and SDG today's partnership has given us this such an important tool that can be utilized in so many different ways to promote our own research and to showcase our work and to share it with others. I think definitely it's a great tool to include. And sometimes I feel that if we it exposes our youngsters to think about different ways of presenting your research, as well as a storytelling component. What is effective, what is not? I think that's something that really helps. Otherwise, it's just the PowerPoint, and PowerPoint can only be very static, whereas this seems to be very dynamic, and life changes so quickly. So I think all our research and all the showcasing that we do of our research also should change as we, go along. So I think that was a good learning experience for me. Wait, if there's no. So Maryam, I want to ask you, SDGs today, what are the next phases? What is it that you're planning for, story maps and other things as you go along?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as you know, Storymaps play an important role in the work that we do and the partnerships that we have. And as I mentioned during the conversation with Ashley, we really do encourage them to use it as a tool to contextualize very technical work and methodologies when it comes to data, whether it's the collection or even the dissemination of data. To those who are involved in the SDGs, to make sure that policymakers, students, researchers, practitioners are aware of initiatives and data and other resources that are available to them. So it's a great way to frame sometimes very technical or difficult to understand concepts and methodologies in a way that everyone can easily understand and follow. So it's something that we're encouraging more of our partners and collaborators to use, and for us to kind of create a larger collection of data initiatives through storytelling.
I think my internet is a little sketchy this side. Sorry about that. But anything that you want to, we are almost 1 minute left, and anything that you want to say just to wrap up, both of you, Maryam and Ashley.
Oh, I just wanted to answer Carol's question on the chat, and she was asking about if I can kindly start kindly give her an answer about where to start with the story map. So I just wanted to say that I probably am not in the position of telling anyone anything because I'm still in the learning process. But I just want to say, if you want to start with a story map, I think it's important to find a focus on where you're gonna focus on in the topic that you're gonna research about. So when I got the topic of SDG 14, life below water, I tried to think of what my biggest interest was, and one of them was fashion. And because I truly was interested in fashion, I decided to choose to research about fast fashion. And from that point where you learn more, when you choose a topic and your focus point, I think it's really easy almost to kind of spread out to different subtopics and research more. And then if you organize on a little Google Doc and start from there, I think that's a good way to just plan out your story map. And also definitely just trying to look at a lot of people's different people's story maps. That might also help, because that gives you a better perspective of how other people's are utilizing the story maps tool.
Radhika, maybe I can share a couple of links with you after this session that you can include in the follow-up email for people who want to get started or just learn more about the tool itself.
That will be very helpful, Maryam, because the email goes to a lot of our recipients as well as our listserv. So I think that will be great. Carol, I'll definitely include you in the email chain, and you can definitely see the links that Maryam will be sharing. But with that, I think it's already 30 minutes past our time, and thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing such a wonderful dialogue between a person who has initiated the story maps and a person who's actually using it to promote her own research and to spread awareness about the issue. I think it was fascinating to see both sides of the story, and what a useful discussion. So thank you so much, and hope that we will get to have more story maps coming from Melbourne specifically, Ashley. So tell your friends. I will definitely post it through the Green Team, and also to our various global viewers and our subscribers who are joining from various places, India, Ghana, and Malaysia, Philippines. We will definitely share it with them as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity, and it was great working with you, Maryam.
Ashley, it was a pleasure working with you, and Radhika, thanks for the opportunity to be able to share this experience with everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope you guys all have a good day, and I will definitely continue using Storymaps.
Thank
Definitely.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.